Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Armchair, Armdrager podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ben Hersick, and this is episode number 41. Excuse me, a little burpy. I don't know why. This week, we actually have Takeover Portland coming up, and I'm very, very excited for that. Top to bottom, it might be the best Takeover show in recent history, maybe of all time. There have been takeovers where you've had great main events and second to last matches and whatnot, and you've had good matches in between, but top to bottom, this might be the best one. But before we get into predictions like that, I have something else I want to talk about involving Takeover. But as we always start off these episodes, you can follow myself on Twitter at ChurroSoldier. You can follow this podcast at Podcast Armchair. You can follow All Things Combat on Twitter at Things Combat, where we cover professional wrestling, boxing, and MMA. I don't know if we'll have live coverage for Takeover. Part of it depends on how quickly I can get out of doing layout for the next thing I have to plug. Part of it depends on if anybody can cover if I can't. I haven't even asked the guys yet. I'll be asking them before this episode drops. So somebody, hopefully, maybe, possibly, will be covering Takeover Portland. And you can also follow the Cauldron at Cleveland State on Twitter at CSU Cauldron. I'm the sports editor over there. I keep saying this every single time until after I graduate from CSU in a couple months here. Newest issue is out. The links were in the description last week. The link was in the description last week because I only had one article. And I'm working on one for this upcoming issue. We'll see how that goes. And I'll talk about that next week. But let's start with Takeover. I'm very excited for Takeover, like I already said. You have 6... That's a bit of a surprise. You have 6 great matches. Potentially great matches. But I do want to talk about one thing. Recently, there's been some talks about a certain Royal Rumble winner challenging for a certain NXT Women's Championship. Yes, I'm talking about Charlotte Flair. Am I fine with Charlotte challenging for the NXT title? Yes, absolutely. Not only does it kind of unofficially, officially say, NXT's the third brand, we're going with it. It also says that this is a brand that people should pay attention to, and it's got one of the biggest names in pro wrestling today challenging its current women's champion. So, and here's the thing. Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair are 2 of the best women's wrestlers. I'll talk about them in a little while. But one thing that's been going on a lot in WWE wrestling particularly is the whole women's evolution. The women have main evented one takeover before. It was Sasha Bayley, Takeover Brooklyn, I believe. Somebody quote me on that if I'm wrong. This is one of the very few times you could make the argument that the women should main event Takeover. There's a lot more writing on Ripley versus Belair than there is on Tommaso Ciampa versus Adam Cole for the NXT Championship. It's going to be a very, very, very interesting show to see how this lays out. Do you start with maybe the most important match of the night from a overall story standpoint wise, or do you go with a little bit of a safer option, which I'll talk about in a little bit? But with how good this Belair and Ripley feud has been booked, even though it feels kind of obvious who the winner is going to be, there's a couple of things that could play into what the loser could do at WrestleMania. We'll talk about that in a little while also. I keep pushing things still a little while, but we will get to all this in this episode, which hopefully will be under a half an hour, because it's a lot later than I had intended to record this, and I need some sleep because I have to be at work early tomorrow. So, enough dilly-dallying. Let's get into Takeover Portland predictions. Also, for whatever reason, this is on a Sunday. It's not on Saturday. I don't know really why. No real reason was given as to why the show was going to be moved to a different day. No real hoopla or talk about it. Everyone was just like, oh, wait, it's a Sunday, not a Saturday. What the hell are we doing? If it was a Saturday, I could have done live coverage. Come on, WWE. Look out for me. Look out for the little guy sitting in his room recording a podcast. Come on. So, let's see, where should we start? Let's start with the one non-title match on the show. I keep getting the stipulation wrong because there's so many different names for the exact same stipulation. The street fight between Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox. Now, I've said this before, I'll say it again, because next week I won't be doing overall reactions to this show. I have an actual topic in mind. Actually, for the next 2 weeks, I had topics in mind. Let's talk about the NXT Women's Division. This Women's Division, I've said it before, I'll say it again, is top to bottom the most stacked division of anything in pro wrestling. Not just any women's division, any division in pro wrestling, period. I'm talking about the men's divisions, the tag divisions, whatever other division it is in Kaiju Big Battle. That is an actual real wrestling promotion. Look them up. They are hilarious, and I love them. But this is the best division from top to bottom. You can't really find too many issues throughout. Yes, you have wrestlers like Vanessa Bourne and Aaliyah who aren't, and to an extent, Xia Li. I've liked some of Xia's stuff, but like those three are examples of women that aren't there just yet, and they need to take that next step, and they're working on it, which is possibly why we haven't seen Vanessa Bourne on TV in a long time. We haven't seen Aaliyah since she broke her nose, I believe it was, 2 or 3 months ago. Xia Li was last on TV in the Royal Rumble, where it doesn't matter how skilled or unskilled you are, you can still look good in the Royal Rumble. And I have no knock against Xia. I have nothing against any of these women. It's just that those three are towards the bottom of the division. They're still really, really good. All these women are so good, and they're fighting for these takeover spots with some of the best singles wrestlers from the men's division too. And you add in the tag team aspect. They're fighting for one of usually 5 coveted spots, and if you're not in the title feud, sometimes you get pushed to the side. But the Dakota Kai Tegan Nox story has been so good. They felt like they've earned this takeover match. Now, Dakota Kai turned on Tegan Nox and Rhea Ripley and Candice LeRae at Takeover War Games after she attacked Mia Yim backstage to steal Mia Yim's spot in the War Games match and then attacked Tegan Nox. At first, I was still very confused with what this was going on, but then, as the story kind of progressed, we got to the point where we're now here with one of the better heels in the NXT Women's Division against one of the best babyface underdogs in Tegan Nox. This match is going to go one of 2 ways. We're going to see the face rise to the occasion, step up and beat the big bully, or we're going to now start to establish something that needs to be set. Rhea Ripley or Bianca Belair or Charlotte Flair's next challenger. Now, if Ripley wins, it's going to be a dominant face run throughout NXT. If Bianca Belair wins, she can play the tweener role. If Charlotte Flair wins the title, it's going to be... I genuinely don't know what Charlotte would be in NXT. I don't know if she's a face. I don't know if she's a heel. I don't know if she's one of the good ones, one of the bad ones. I don't know where she would line up. But let's say for all intents and purposes, just for this scenario, let's say Rhea retains against Belair and against Charlotte Flair. That would make sense for Dakota Kai to win. Because right now, look at the NXT women's roster. Tell me who exactly, the NXT women's roster specifically, tell me who exactly should take the title off of Rhea Ripley. The only other name I can think of outside of Dakota Kai is Candice LeRae. And that has to be a whole thing where, Candice catches Rhea with a roll-up or something of that sort in a match and is now champion, and then the next week we see Rhea Ripley on Raw or SmackDown. And that explains the loss. But with Dakota Kai, you can kind of tell that story and let it progress naturally. And then you have that match where you have Ripley lose, and then she's on the main roster. The quote-unquote main roster. I would also like to see trades be involved here somehow, some way if we're going for the real sport angle for WWE. But we'll see. But also, neither person is really hurt with a loss here either in Kai and Nox. Nox is so over with the whole Full Sail crowd. Dakota Kai, even though she's a heel, everybody still loves her. She's still one of the best women's wrestlers in the world today. Am I a little biased because I like Dakota Kai a lot? Yes, but still. I think she is somebody that they can build around and build up. She's not, for lack of a, I know I said NXT from top to bottom is the best the women's division there is the best thing ever. But I'd say this, Dakota Kai is not necessarily ready yet for the main roster. Because of how deep the entire women's division is in WWE right now, she can kind of stay in NXT for a little bit, develop even more, quote-unquote develop, because she's already a well-established name. She can get even better, and then she can move to the main roster when she's ready and when there's a little bit more space. So I have Dakota Kai winning. I'm not 100% confident in it, but I think even if you want to prolong the feud with her and Tegan, this is a good way to do it. So after that, let's see. What else? What should I talk about next? How about the tag team match? The Undisputed Era, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly defending the NXT Tag Team Championships against a tag team I didn't know I wanted in my life until it happened. The Broserweights, Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle. These two are so good together. And I saw somebody comment this on a Facebook post about the whole Broserweights trying to get to Portland thing last week on NXT. Somebody said, I feel so bad for Pete Dunne. And somebody responded, why? Somebody else responded, they were like, oh no, an actual story where he can wrestle for a championship. And I'm like, that's true. That is very true. So this match, this is the other hard one for me to call. The other 4 matches I feel like are a lot easier to call than this one. With Kai and Nox, you can kind of see that going either way. And you can say the same for Undisputed Era versus the Broserweights. I think the whole thing for NXT for a while was the whole prophecy of the Undisputed Era being draped in gold. And then Roderick Strong lost the North American title to Keith Lee. And then Imperium beat Undisputed Era at Worlds Collide. So the prophecy has been broken. And now what I want to see is that prophecy break more and more, piece by piece, bit by bit. So I think it makes a little more sense for the Broserweights to win here. Plus, it adds that much needed tag team depth to NXT. It gives people an actual team that they like and somebody they can cheer. And you look at it, these are 2 guys who, in Riddle and Dunn, don't have anything else really going on right now. So why not let them have a tag team title run? Does it have to be the longest tag team title run in NXT history? No. But let them have at least a semi-decent one, and then we'll see where we go from there. Because you look at it, with them having nothing really to do, and with Mustache Mountain, it's seeming like coming over to NXT USA full-time, that adds 2 tag teams to a tag team division that doesn't really have a lot. You have Forgotten Sons and Wesley Blake and Steve Cutler. Breezango is currently on the shelf with Fandango being out with some injury or another. My brain says rotator cuff, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And that's really the extent of the tag teams right now. There's a couple of others in developmental, like super early developmental. And there's a few others that could kind of play in. But there's also guys who aren't doing anything right now. So maybe we see some more teams form. I would love to see somebody team with Bronson Reed. Eli Sexton, that's who it should be. Eli Sexton and Bronson Bronson Reed, almost did it again, should team up. And then they could go after the tag team titles as like the Australian Connection or something or another. I'm just spitballing ideas right now because I don't really know. Because I really like a lot of these guys in NXT and they don't have anything to do. So give them something to do. Like Isaiah Swerve Scott. But no, I think also with the idea of Undisputed Era losing all the gold, Roddy was the last addition to the Undisputed Era, so he logically made sense as the first member to lose his championship. Fish and O'Reilly makes sense to lose it, and then they can all kind of like cling to Adam Cole. Like, we're still with the NXT champion, we're still prominent, we still matter. And then eventually, possibly at Portland, not to spoil any predictions I have, when Cole does lose that title, then you can be like, Undisputed Era doesn't matter in NXT anymore. Now what? They show up on Raw or SmackDown, depending on where the hell New Day is. So put them on opposite brands, please. We don't need that many people in a stable together. They end up on the opposite brand of New Day, and they just go. So I have the Broserweights winning the titles. Dunn getting back to being a champion. Riddle finally getting a championship in WWE. It's hard to believe it's been almost a year Matt Riddle's been signed to the company. I think a little over a year, actually. And he still hasn't won a championship. It's like mind-boggling to me. So, I forgot there's another non-title match. I literally just remembered it. And it's possibly going to be the match of the show. Let's talk Gargano Balor. Does this one feel pretty obvious that Finn's winning? Yeah, it feels pretty obvious. But this build has been done so well. Especially where Johnny and Finn were having the face-to-face, essentially, on the Titantron, just cutting a promo against each other. And Johnny Gargano going, that's the Finn Balor I want, where it's like aggressive, focused, driven Finn Balor. That's the Finn Balor I need to beat. That's NXT Finn Balor. That's not Finn Balor from Raw or SmackDown that lost to Bobby Lashley 17 times in a row. That promo itself gets people interested into the feud. And you have two of the best guys in the ring today. I am very, very excited for this, even though it's pretty obvious that Balor's winning. But you look at it, you have a story here too. You have the Finn Balor going back to NXT. He hasn't done much yet, but now this is his first really big match. So, how exactly does this go? What exactly do we see? And by that I mean, do we see Finn Balor the Demon? I'm 50-50 on this part. I don't know if we do or if we don't. After that promo, I immediately thought, we're getting Finn Balor the Demon. This is going to be the Demon trying to vanquish Johnny Gargano and then go off to be the hot shot in NXT. But now, I'm starting to sit back and wonder, are we actually going to see the Demon? Is this match on that big enough stage to see the Demon to Finn Balor? Part of my brain says yes because of the promo work and how good this feud's been. Part of my brain says no. So I'm like super, super split on this. I'm going to tentatively say no, but I might flip my mind 5 or 6 times before the actual show starts. But these two are going to tear the house down. We're going to see some fantastic wrestling. Think back to when Gargano had those... Oh, God, how long ago were they? Like, back to when he had the match with Almas for the championship. Back to when him and Cole had their feud for the title. Was that last year? That was last year. So go back 2 years for the Gargano Almas match. The Gargano Ciampa matches are also in this. Like, we're going to see the true to form Johnny wrestling. And we're going to see Finn Balor with less of a leash and Triple H pretty much just telling him, go and do it. Go entertain. And that's what I think we need to see from Finn Balor. And I'm excited to see that. We're going to see unchained, unhinged Finn Balor. Let them go 25 minutes, please. I feel like anything shorter than that, we're not going to get the full story. But we'll see how that goes. Balor is like the only real safe pick I feel like I can make here on this entire show. Because, look at the next match that I want to talk about. The North American Championship match. I'm not spending a lot of times on these matches, I understand. And I could go like super in-depth about the entire story and everything. But this story has been writing itself in front of our eyes. The North American Championship on the line. Keith Lee defending his championship against Dominik Dijakovic. These two have maybe the best chemistry of any two wrestlers I've seen for a long time. These two just work so well together. The last time I can think of a chemistry like this is Undertaker and Edge. Those guys just had a chemistry about it, and they made every single match they had just work. Everything just clicked. Same, and you can look at Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic as that. These two just have that chemistry. Was Edge versus Undertaker ever 5 stars? No. Lee and Dijakovic had done it at least once or twice, I think. I know they had one at a PWG show. But I don't know if they have had another one since. They might have. I don't remember. And it's crazy because these two guys are not your typical high flyer, do all the moves guys. These guys are big men. Dijakovic is like 6'8" or 6'9". Keith Lee is like 320 at least. I don't remember the exact weight and height off the top of my head. I am not a walking wrestling encyclopedia. But I look at it, this match right here, the story of these two of having that back and forth in this late spring, or late fall, late summer, actually. This feud has gone back since the late summer. They united for a brief period at War Games, and they could have been tag team champions. I would have liked to have seen Lee and Dijakovic be tag team champions right now. Lee Dijakovic versus Riddle and Dunn would be very interesting. But they're not the champion. They're not tag champions. Let's get that out of my mind. These two aren't just going to be like the typical big men, chop each other in half, clotheslines, and basic moves. We're going to see bodies flying. And this NXT mid-card division is so good, too. Just that these two are on the takeover, and you have the likes of Roderick Strong, Velveteen Dream, Damian Priest, Cameron Grimes, Isaiah Scott. You have all these guys in the mid-card who aren't on the show while these two are. That speaks to how great the depth is and how important it is to get yourself noticed. These two got themselves noticed, and this is what they're getting. Now, as for this match here, Lee is still relatively early into his title run, so I don't think it would be very appropriate for him to lose it here, unless he's going to the main event scene. I almost said main roster for a second. Unless Keith Lee goes to the main event scene, I don't think he needs to lose the NXT Championship right here. Or the NXT North American Championship, excuse me. I say we wait a little bit, let these two have a great match. Maybe we see... That was another name I didn't even mention, Kushida. Maybe we see the first ever NXT Elimination Chamber for the North American Championship. And you have a bunch of guys that can do that. Put in Lee, put in Dijakovic, put in Damian Priest, Cameron Grimes, Isaiah Scott, Kushida, Velveteen Dream, Roderick Strong. Put in whoever you want from that mid-card scene, and you've got a hell of a match on your hands. Maybe bring back qualifying matches too. I don't know. But I do feel like Dijakovic's time is coming. It's going to be here before we know it. Maybe SummerSlam weekend we see that Elimination Chamber match or some sort of maybe a multi-man ladder match. That's when I think we see Dijakovic get the title from Lee. Because I feel like the only person logically to defeat Keith Lee should be Dijakovic. And then maybe you start Damian Priest's ascent or something like that. We'll see how that goes. So now, let's get to that NXT Women's Championship match with Rhea Ripley defending against Bianca Belair. Now, apparently, rumor I believe going around is that Charlotte Flair will be at Takeover Portland and be at ringside for this match. Well, she'll be watching the match at the show from somewhere. Now, what I would like to see is there's multiple things I would like to see. And like I said, it feels obvious. The last 4 matches are going to be easy picks. Balor over Gargano, Lee over Dijakovic. I have Ripley over Belair. I think 99% of the wrestling community out there have Ripley retaining over Belair. But let's explain. And here's my thought process on this. I can see this being twofold. And part of it does involve the main roster in a way. So let's go with option A. You have Ripley versus Belair going on. It's a heated match, another really great match on the show. And we get to a point where the referee gets knocked down. Referee's out. Charlotte gets involved. She hits a natural selection or something on Ripley. And then when she's getting out of the ring, Bianca tries to turn her around and she's like, "Why are you getting involved in my championship match? This is my shot, not yours," or something or another. And then she just eats a big boot. Back and forth continues between Ripley and Belair for a little bit. Charlotte walks off in a huff or something. And then Riptide, 1, 2, 3, Ripley retains. And then we fast forward to WrestleMania. Bianca Belair's in the I almost said the Andre and the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. She's in the Women's WrestleMania Battle Royal. She wins that. And then Raw after WrestleMania, Charlotte Flair does not beat Rhea Ripley. She's on Raw, I don't know what I have to do. I don't know what I can do now, blah, blah, blah. She's down in the dumps. She's putting herself down. And then Belair comes out. Main roster debut on Monday Night Raw. Gets a match with Charlotte and beats her. Star is made. And that's what I think you can get from this. Not just from this match itself, from this feud, you could make 2 stars. Yes, you could argue Rhea Ripley's already a star, but you can make her even more of one. You can make her the most talked about women's wrestler in the world. It doesn't matter what promotion. Rhea Ripley could be the most talked about women's wrestler in the world after this feud with Charlotte Flair. But you add in Bianca Belair, and if they play their cards right, she could be a star going forward. Bianca's one of, I'll say, 2 women's wrestlers who don't need to touch the NXT Women's Championship. Her and Io Shirai don't need a title run to be champion. Or to be over. They don't need that. They can just go to the main roster and just already be like, "Oh, we know who these are. We know how good these 2 are. Let's just go see them wrestle." And also, you look at it, the other option is even more interesting. So this option revolves around Sasha Banks. And I'll explain. So right now, from all reports I've read, the penciled-in SmackDown Women's Championship match for WrestleMania is Bayley versus Sasha Banks. I'm saying this as SmackDown's going on, and I'm vaguely checking Twitter for spoilers. I haven't seen any yet. For those that don't know, I don't do live coverage of SmackDown anymore. I very rarely do Raw. I might be able to catch Raw once or twice here soon. Maybe tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Maybe this week, because President's Day. But I'm getting off track. So let's say, but right now, with that Sasha Bayley match, the rumor going around, I don't know how official and how true it is. We haven't seen her since before the Royal Rumble. I know that much. We haven't seen Sasha Banks wrestle a lot recently, so rumors going around she's injured. Do I believe that to be true? I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I genuinely don't know. I have no way of contacting the woman to actually ask her that question, because the only way I believe rumors are either A, if they actually are confirmed by a source within the company, or B, if they're straight from the person the rumor is about's mouth. If Sasha Banks were to hop on Twitter tomorrow and tweet, "Yeah, I'm injured," then it's oh, okay. It's confirmed she's injured. Cool. But until then, we don't know. So let's say that the injury is severe enough so that she has to miss WrestleMania. Do I want that to be the case? Absolutely not. But let's say that it is. Now, Bayley needs an opponent. How do you figure out who that opponent is? Easy. The winner of the Women's Battle Royal on the pre-show. Now, you have a couple of contenders in there, returning Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, Lana, because those 2 have been doing huge numbers on YouTube or something. I don't know. Not a business savvy person like that. So you also have options like, Naomi's an obvious option. You have Carmella. You have Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross. You could just do a big 6-way match or something like that. But look at the year Bianca Belair has already had. She had a great showing in January. She had an amazing Royal Rumble match where she is now tied with Shayna Baszler for the most eliminations in a single Royal Rumble match history for the women. And you now have her as the number one contender for Rhea Ripley's NXT Women's Championship, and their feud has been fantastic. Imagine if Bianca Belair wins the Women's Battle Royal in the pre-show and goes on to face Bayley, and those two put on a great match. Belair would be made from day one. That's all you need. You just need to give Belair a chance, and she will take that ball and run. And that is what is amazing about her in the ring. Somebody who didn't start as a wrestler like Belair, getting a shot like this is amazing. But in the end, I said Ripley's winning. There is money in a Charlotte Flair Bianca Belair match. Yes, I'm not denying that. I would like to see those two wrestle each other at some point. But I think with how big Ripley's win over Shayna Baszler was, and the fact that she's maybe still in like the second or third month of her reign, I don't remember off the top of my head, let that reign go for a little while longer, and then have somebody dethrone her, like a Candice LeRae, a Dakota Kai, maybe a Mercedes Martinez. I'm just throwing that name out there. So now we get to what could be closing the show. I don't really know. It could be Belair Ripley, like I said, but we'll see. Tommaso Ciampa challenging Adam Cole for Cole's NXT Championship. It would be very... Here's the thing. I didn't think about this until I think it was Jack from Cultaholic said it on their predictions video. Tommaso Ciampa winning the NXT title back WrestleMania weekend would be a huge pop. And yes, it would. Absolutely it would. But I don't know if that's the route they want to go. They could easily do they could do a fatal 4-way for all I know. Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Finn Balor, and Tommaso Ciampa. They could do that WrestleMania weekend. They could just do Balor and Cole. They could just do Ciampa and Cole. They could just do Ciampa and Balor. They could do Gargano Balor. Again, they couldn't do Gargano Balor. They could do Gargano Ciampa. That's what I meant to say. But do they want to go that route? And you think about the audience that is going to be there. Yes, they'll love Tommaso Ciampa. Everybody loves Tommaso Ciampa. But also, it will be a very international audience, a very mixed audience. Maybe Finn Balor would be a better choice to be the one to dethrone Cole. I'm taking Adam Cole here. I feel like him losing the title outside of WrestleMania weekend at this point kind of feels unrealistic. Simply because of that fact. It's like, you also add in the Undisputed Era's draped in gold prophecy crumbling around him. He's like that last pillar that just won't get knocked down, that just stays standing. That's what I want to see. That's what I hope happens. That's what I think should happen. And I've been enjoying his reign so much, I don't think it should end. Not yet, at least. Let it go for another month or two. And then we end it, and then we see what happens to Undisputed Era. Who knows where they end up? Who knows what happens? This match is going to be... I'm excited for it, but I'm also optimistic because I don't really know what to expect. These two could be all over the place. They could keep it simple and clean. They could go balls to the wall. I'm expecting Undisputed Era assistance at some point, and I expect Gargano to be the one to make the save to stop the Undisputed Era. But we'll see. But there's no way I think Cole is walking out of Portland without the NXT Championship. He has to be walking out with the title. And as much as I like Ciampa, I don't know if that's the story they want to go. Maybe they put DIY back together for an actual tag title run, and then they break up again, and then Ciampa gets the title, and then we finish Gargano Ciampa. Who knows? We'll see. But that is my Takeover Portland predictions. To recap, I have Dakota Kai defeating Tegan Nox in the street fight. I have the Broserweights winning the tag team titles from Undisputed Era. I'm trying to remember the exact order I said this. I have Finn Balor over Johnny Gargano. I have Keith Lee retaining the North American Championship over Dominic Dijakovic. Rhea Ripley retaining over Bianca Belair for the Women's Championship. I expect that match and Gargano Balor are fighting for match of the night in my head. I really want it to be the women, but I can easily see it being Gargano Balor. We'll see. I have Adam Cole retaining the NXT Championship over Tommaso Ciampa. Thank you guys so much for listening. Next week, we will be back. I'll have a quick recap and talk a little bit about each match from Takeover Portland. And we'll see what the future holds for these champions and challengers and singles match competitors. But we also have another topic I want to discuss then. It does involve NXT still, I will say that much. But that's it no, it doesn't. It involves something on, well, I'll leave it for a secret, actually. In 2 weeks, I'll be talking more about NXT. But that is it for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, you can follow myself on Twitter at Churro Soldier. You can follow this podcast at Podcast Armchair. You can follow All Things Combat on Twitter at Things Combat, where I'm a writer for them. We cover professional wrestling, boxing, and MMA. They are going to be starting their WrestleMania reviews soon. Very excited to see what the guys thought of every single WrestleMania that has ever happened. There are some really bad ones, and there are some great ones. So we'll see where these rank. And you can also follow the Cauldron at Cleveland State on Twitter at CSU Cauldron. I'm the sports editor over there. We have Layout next Sunday. I'll talk about what I'm covering very briefly next week on the episode. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Hit the like button if you like what you heard. If you really like what you heard, hit subscribe. I'm always willing to talk wrestling with anybody and everybody. So leave a comment. Yell at me on Twitter about, no, you're wrong. There's no way that Ciampa's not winning the title. Yell at me about it. I don't care. I'll respond and we can have an actual very fun discussion about fantasy booking stuff. Because that's how my brain works all the time with pro wrestling. And I absolutely love it. Thank you guys so much for listening. And I'll see you guys next week with some reactions and a talk about a big event coming up for the world of pro wrestling.